I remade Pacman, except as a first person game and the ghosts are abnormally huge. We're going to delve into the system behind this project, including how each of the 4 ghost AIs work, so pull out your time machine and fly back to the 1980s, because we're about to make this arcade game a whole lot better. Blakey is back with another retro remake, but I would consider this a bit of an upgrade compared to this video, so make sure to stay tuned. So Pacman dropped as an arcade game in Tokyo and consists of a small yellow circle with a mouth running around a maze collecting pellets, while 4 ghosts attempt to stop it in its tracks. Now this gets more complex than you think, but we're going to save that for later in the video. So goal number 1 was to remake the map. I flew into the sky of my brand new project and laid out a nice flat plane and began painting the area with walls. Every line, every corner, every detail had to be put in place if I really wanted to remake Pacman in the true fashion of this channel. I used grids and movement snapping to try and keep the equal grid-like layout, although that is just about the only thing that is rigid in this remake. When it comes to movement of both our player and the ghosts, well, that's a different story.
What is this?
With our layout and the textures to go with it finally out the way, it was time to get some player movement in there. I used my first person system, which, if you're jealous, you can grab by subscribing to my Patreon.
That is shocking.
And now our project had some life to it. I could begin to see how we would birth such an astonishing form of Pacman. But at the moment, our guy's looking hungry and he's got no food to feed off, so it was time to give him some metallic balls to feed on, as this is evidently his favourite food.
Don't laugh.
So with some big brain code to pair with our new pellets, he could finally eat, or headbutt apparently. Yeah, I forgot to add the code to make it disappear. Alright, well, I might as well make it look a little cooler before I show you. So I gave some particles to our pellet, and if you're wondering, yes, there is many pellets scattered around. Yes, there is particles on every pellet, and finally, yes, I did have to tone them down as my PC was screaming, "Help me!" After some minor tweaks to make the collision less noticeable, we could run around and pick up pellets like there's no tomorrow. So phase 1 was officially complete. Some would argue this was the easy part of development. I would wholeheartedly agree. Phase 2 was getting our ghost AI in place, the longest and hardest phase of development, and you will soon see why. So while we set up our first and simplest of the 4 ghosts in the background, allow me to give you some context on them. So Pacman is chased by 4 AI bots, known as Blakey, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde, all with different attributes and targets, which make the seemingly simple AI complex and replayable. But let's start with Blakey. In Japanese, Blakey's personality translates into chaser or pursuer, and that's because he has one very simple goal: chase Pacman. This makes it nice and easy and requires us to make no calculations or extra game objects. Now for the 4 ghosts, I'm going to be using Unity's nav mesh system, which is perfect for a game like this. So I set up the ground and floors for the nav mesh and baked the scene, allowing Blakey to check where he can and can't walk and adjust his path accordingly. Some very simple code later, and you could see that he was very slowly chasing us around the maze with his genius obstacle avoidance. Wait, where's he gone? One issue I was having was that his movement was a little wonky. Like he'd have a straight path directly to me and just decide to wobble left and right. But I was able to fix this by adjusting the width of the ground he can walk on and also tweaking some settings on his nav mesh component. So I closed the hood, put him into gear, and his movement became a lot more rigid. He finds the quickest path to our player and makes an absolute beeline for it. Now during phase 2, I wanted to add this feature of the original, in which the player can go off screen and come out the other side. Call this part of development phase 2.5. as it doesn't technically fit into phase 2, but we're going to run with it anyway. But with that out of the way, it was time for a quick playtest to see how the game felt as of now, and of course it was
all coming together.
The element of panic you have in the original is even more apparent in this game when you have a giant red cylinder chasing you. It was time to make Pinky. Now Pinky's personality is described as speedy, and in Japanese it translates to ambusher. I think the Japanese translation is much more appropriate, as Pinky's goal is to try and reach where Pacman is about to go, not where he currently is, and that is 4 tiles ahead of him. So this is also pretty simple. In our game, I just made a game object that is a few units in front of the camera's position at any given time, and we can just set this to Pinky's target. And you can see from this alone, our 2 ghosts split off at multiple points, giving the player something extra to think about. Easy. This is 2 ghosts done already. It won't get more complicated than this. I was foreshadowing. So my friends, we moved on to my good pal Inky. Now Inky chose to be awkward. He's going to make my life harder as I attempt to explain how this goal works, but we're going to give it a good go. So essentially, Inky calculates the distance between Blakey, the first ghost, the red one, and 2 tiles ahead of Pacman. He then grabs this line that you're seeing right now and doubles it, and the end point of this new line is Inky's position. Does that make sense? Who knows? And you know what? I'm okay with that. I tried. As you can probably imagine, there's points where Inky is just miles away from you, but if Blakey is close on your tail, you can bet your life savings Inky will be too.
Which right now isn't much.
So calculating this did take me a little while, I'm not afraid to admit, and in the end Inky's target is not exactly double the size of the initial vector, but it's about 1.5 times the size. But no complaints, as you know, my version's better anyway. This alone looks pretty satisfying, and in gameplay we now have 3 erratic ghosts all hungry to get a piece of Pacman. I can't say I blame them, he is looking fine as Now Clyde is described as feigning ignorance, or as I like to call, stupid. He just wanders about the map, switching between chasing Pacman and then going off into his own corner of the map. Honestly, he's just vibing out. He's living his life. Maybe that's why he's called Clyde, I don't know. He's the outcast of the group, you know? In fact, he is so useless, I'm not even going to give you a preview of his movement until after we make all 4 of our ghosts look good. Speaking of which, let's Alt-Tab out of Unity and slide into Blender, as you get to witness the greatest render of this little ghost you will ever see, with its sharp corners revisualized in a lush 3D environment, gleaming white eyes, really capturing the aggression they want to convey. Don't laugh. I know you're smiling at your screen right now. I promise this definitely did not take more than an hour. Look, I'm going to butter it up with some gleaming visual effects later. But for now, just be grateful you're not staring at cylinders for the rest of the video. Speaking of which, it was time to replace them with our brand new ghost model and give them their respective colours. And now let me tell you, these wide-ass ghosts are not to be messed with. They will track you down and physically make contact with their eyeballs alone. But at the moment, we're safe, as I haven't set that up yet. Now, to round off phase 2, it was time to add some functionality to our ghosts. Now, in the original, these ghosts have 2 modes. Chase mode, which we've seen in this video, and scatter mode, in which each ghost has their own corner to go to, and will head there temporarily before going back to chase mode. This gives the player a chance to breathe and also switches up the positioning of the ghost upon their return. Now, I used a number of booleans and timers to track which mode should be used and when, and after doing some simple testing in the editor, free tip from yours truly, you should do this.
He's a genius.
I could officially add the final code for our ghosts to actually enter scatter mode. And you can see that after chasing us for a little while, they'll sack it off and just head to their corners. Clearly, my dominance was too overpowering. But you can now officially mark phase 2, the biggest and most stressful phase of development, complete. Now it was time to add some visual effects and a cool little mini-map just for a flex.
Normally I'd be excited that we just rhyme.
So I initially kicked phase 3 off with changing our skybox to a flat colour, that being black, and that actually made a huge difference. This really made you feel like you're in a little arcade machine surrounded by these aggressive enemies, but we could not stop there. Our player deserved to see how many pellets they'd collected, as this was a game about getting a high score at the end of the day. So some simple UI was dropped into the scene, as well as some simple code to go with it, and it simply adds to an integer in the game manager script that is then converted into a string and displayed as text on screen. I'm smart sometimes, I promise. I then added some cool little functionality for a restart system, allowing the player to try again if they are eaten alive by any of our ghosts. Alright, maybe that's a bit dark. If they lose, they can try again. That's better. And what ghost better to be used to present our new feature than the fabulous Clyde? He truly is the lord of the 4 ghosts. So it's now time for everybody's favourite part of the video, maybe, post-processing. That part where I use effects to disguise the absolute monstrosity I've created and actually make it look half decent. A combination of bloom, grain, this word and more help me do this. And now, as much as I'd like to show you the final result, let's make a minimap first. This is basically done by rendering a second camera and then capturing that render inside a texture. This texture can then be displayed as an image on our canvas. Very nice and very simple, but I know what you want. I'll stop teasing now. If you really want to see what our brand new Pacman remake looks like in its final form, I guess I'll show you. And that, gamers, marks the end of another Blakey video. I've got to say, I've been on a bit of a roll recently, but if you are enjoying the content, please do like and comment on this video, and of course, please do subscribe, as I love making these videos, but they do take a ton of time, so any help boosting me into the algorithm is appreciated. But guys, I'll thank you all very much for watching today's video, and as always, I will see you all in the next one. Bye!